Welcome back to It's Called Football. Matchday 15 of the Premier League has just finished just hours ago, but because this was a midweek round of matches and we still have Matchday 16 coming up this weekend, we figured that we'll bring you the recap right away so that you can catch up on everything in case you weren't able to or in case you just want to relive everything that's happened over the past 3 days. We will, of course, be back with our Matchday 16 preview on time before the weekend's fixtures resume with the next round of games in the Premier League. So, a reminder of some of the games that took place. Tuesday saw the beginning of Matchday 15 with two games as Wolves hosted Burnley and Luton Town, another side that's along with Burnley close to the bottom of the table, welcomed league leaders Arsenal. Was guaranteed to be tricky games in both cases. And for those of you that watched our match day 15 preview, you would have seen that we didn't exactly predict blowouts for these games. Brighton and Brentford are two sides that both like to attack well and they've got good talent, but they also have this nice balance of being very structured defensively. That being said, Brighton have managed to score and get scored on in every match this season. Now, that's not to say that means their defense is bad because they have still got a place right now in the top half of the Premier League quite comfortably, which means their attack is just more potent than their defense is porous. Crystal Palace, though, is a side that's been struggling of late, whereas Bournemouth haven't. Bournemouth have had a sudden resurgence and have started picking up results against sides both near them in the table and sides that are many, many places above them. And then finally, struggling Fulham played host to kind of fellow strugglers at the moment in Nottingham Forest, who haven't had a good couple of games, I think losing their last two. The pick of the round, you could probably be forgiven for saying that it was Fulham's fixture against Nottingham Forest, given how the games played out. I might have some bias in mine, obviously, but Luton Town and Arsenal delivered yet another classic filled with goals, sort of keeping in trend with at least one match, if not multiple, from the past couple of match days as well. However, Wolves got the ball rolling with a 1-0 win over Burnley. And then, like we said, Arsenal and Luton played a thriller that we're going to go into a little detail on later on, with Arsenal eventually coming out winners by 4 goals to 3. That is the second match day in a row now that we have seen a 4-3 scoreline after, of course, Liverpool managed to turn things around late against Fulham at the end of match day 14. Brighton managed to come from behind at home. Brentford had gone ahead with a penalty, and then Brighton managed to turn it around with 2 goals to take a win at home and send Brentford packing, unfortunately for them, with nothing. Crystal Palace continued their poor form, or you can look at it as Bournemouth just continue their resurgence with a 2-0 away win. A clean sheet away at Palace is always difficult, and especially if you're a side who isn't one of the dominant teams in the league, it can be even tougher to get a result there, no matter what form Palace are in. And yet Bournemouth did it with relative ease, to be honest. But the team that found games probably the easiest so far in this match day was Fulham, surprisingly, who ran rampant over Nottingham Forest and came out 5-0 winners, heaping the pressure uh, on Forest as each game week goes now. The rest of our fixtures, we saw some more on Wednesday, where Sheffield United, currently bottom of the league, hosted Liverpool. Manchester City, after 3 draws in a row now to Chelsea, Liverpool, and Tottenham, they now were traveling to inform Aston Villa. Like we mentioned as well in our preview, Aston Villa were going into this game on a run of 13 straight games that they had won at home in the league. Their last defeat actually came in February of last season when they hosted Arsenal. So Manchester City obviously is a very tough test, and they were the ones that were next trying to topple Villa at their own home. We then saw probably one of the matches that, if you go back a decade or so, was one that everybody would earmark on their calendars as a must-watch: Manchester United and Chelsea. Although now with both teams slightly struggling for to keep up at least with the real top sides in Europe and in England, this game has lost a little bit of its fire and its edge. That being said, there is still a rivalry between them. And then today's games on Thursday saw Everton host Newcastle and Tottenham host West Ham. Liverpool were, I wouldn't say it was comfortable despite the scoreline. I saw bits and pieces of this match, and Liverpool did score and they kind of controlled large portions of the game, but they also didn't look as at ease as they usually do when they're facing sides that are noticeably weaker than them. So Sheffield United did fight a little bit without ever posing amazing threat to Liverpool. But that being said, obviously Liverpool deserved their win. They made it count in the moments where they got clear chances and they put them away. Aston Villa, to the shock of many people, including myself, actually managed to continue their winning streak, winning 1-0 against Manchester City, meaning that City now have not won in their last four matches, which is almost unheard of for them. I can't remember the last time actually that they've been on a string of results like that. Um, we'll talk a little more about that in a bit. Manchester United as well got a much needed home win against Chelsea. Honestly, I thought Chelsea would deliver a better performance than they did on the day. The result is close, but in truth, Manchester United dominated this match start to finish. They were excellent, and Chelsea were just not at the races. And then today's fixtures saw some more surprises because Newcastle United fell 3-0 to a defeat to Everton, which had special significance for the Blues. Um, and Tottenham, despite going ahead for the fifth game running, dropped points, ultimately conceding two goals and actually quite gifting two goals to West Ham uh, to turn it around and lose the game 2-1 at home. It's not good for Spurs, who have now lost three games in a row at their own home after leading for the first time. I think they're the first club to do that. But also, this means that Tottenham have now taken the lead in their last five matches and then gone on not to win any of those games. It's a worrying trend that they're developing, but I don't know, maybe being December or something, they've gotten into the festive spirit early because especially West Ham's second goal was gift wrapped with a bow and given to them. And fair play for the Christmas spirit and all, but I think that's taking it a little far. So look at changes in the table after matchday 15's completion. Arsenal's win on Tuesday ensured that they would lead the table for at least another matchday because no matter what anyone else did, they could just try to play catch up, which Liverpool did. They did manage to get their win as they were kind of expected to, and are hot on Arsenal's tail. Aston Villa's win over Man City had special significance because Villa, like I've said a few times, they've been going under the radar. They've been a little bit ignored almost because the big teams have been fighting in this title race and so on. But Villa have just quietly been getting their results, and now the whole league took notice because they have now actually gone ahead of Manchester City in the league table for now with the win over them, which is stunning. Third place at the moment, only 4 points off top spot. Insane, really, and well done to Aston Villa to for what they've done so far. If you look back, and for those of you that have been following the league season or watching our videos from the start of this season, Villa's opening game was a 5-1 defeat at the hands of Newcastle, which had left them rock bottom of the league. And now they've just beaten the current champions, Man City, and are sitting above them in third place. Fantastic achievement so far. Spurs' defeat luckily meant that they didn't drop any places because they had enough breathing space in terms of points on the teams below them. However, with Newcastle falling to defeat and Manchester United winning their game, it meant that Man United are now above Newcastle on points and only behind Tottenham on goal difference. An improvement, at least in results. And to be fair, this performance by Manchester United was better than a lot of their recent ones have been. Newcastle, by contrast, didn't really put in a good performance at all, and they deserved to lose to Everton the way they did. I watched that game today, and Newcastle were not at all anywhere near the level required. Brighton's win was enough to make sure that they kept pace with the teams directly above them. They still can catch them if any of them slip up, and Brighton continue to win. And West Ham also managing to turn things around and beat Tottenham meant that they keep pace as well with Brighton, with Newcastle, and with Manchester United and Tottenham. All of them are within catching distance of West Ham. West Ham's win also guaranteed that Chelsea, although they lost obviously this week, Chelsea will remain below them, and West Ham have given themselves a little bit of leeway there, and they can afford at least one bad result and not lose their place in the league table for now. The bottom half of the table saw a little more movement with the results because there are some teams that were quite close to each other. Brentford losing their game ultimately didn't mean that they dropped any places, but also obviously hindered them from being able to go up the table at all. Fulham, however, with their huge win, managed to not only uh, equal Wolves on points, but their massive margin of victory against Nottingham Forest meant that on goals scored, Fulham have now jumped ahead of Wolves and sit in 12th. Palace, meanwhile, with their defeat to Bournemouth, have dropped down 2 places to 14th, and they are now level on points with the team that just beat them, AFC Bournemouth, where only goal difference is holding Bournemouth back right now from being higher in the table. But good resurgence from Bournemouth to be moving up in the table and competing close to the same level of points as the teams directly around them. Nottingham Forest defeat to Fulham means that they've dropped a spot now to 16th and now 3 points behind the next two teams. Now, goal difference might be something that works a little in their favor, but obviously Forest have now lost, I believe, 3 on the bounce, and it's looking concerning for them, for their manager, Steve Cooper, and we'll talk a little more about that. The biggest news in the bottom half of the table is Everton, who faced that points deduction some weeks ago. With the big win today over Newcastle, they have actually managed to come back out of those bottom 3 spots again. They've really been very good this season, and I think they're not getting all the credit they deserve. In fact, if they hadn't been deducted 10 points, they would have been on 20 right now, which actually would have put them in the top half in 10th place. So spectacular by Everton, and the way they're going suggests that perhaps they will keep on moving up the table if they can play the way they did today a little more consistently. This means, of course, that the bottom 3 now are once again the 3 promoted sides that came up from the Championship at the end of last season. Sheffield United remain rock bottom and now have a negative 30 goal difference, while Burnley and Luton also don't have healthy goal differences but do have some more points that put them in slightly better positions. Luton, of course, is in the best of the 3 positions out of those bottom spots, because if Luton were to pick up another win, soon before either of the other two do, then Luton could, in theory, um, send Everton back into the bottom 3 or so on. But it's concerning a little bit for those bottom 3 teams. Tons and tons of moments to talk about from this match day, which stood out, at least for me. And again, if there's any that maybe you saw that were different, feel free to share them in the comments and mention them. I'm always happy to hear your views. First of all, Aston Villa don't know really where to start, aside from the fact that they beat uh, Manchester City, which is an achievement in itself. It's not just that they beat them, it's the manner in which Aston Villa won this game. They had 22 shots compared to Manchester City's two, and both of Man City's shots came within maybe 10 seconds of each other, a shot and then a kind of follow-up effort. But that all finished by around the 11th minute, and City did not have another chance at goal after that. That is sensational teamwork and good defending from Aston Villa as a unit. Meanwhile, Villa just kept on applying the pressure, and when they finally did get their goal through Leon Bailey, pictured here, no one could begrudge them that because they fully earned it. Even Man City fans across the dark web of Twitter were saying, you know what, we hold our hands up, fair play. We haven't been at the races today in this game. So really, really, really good stuff by Aston Villa. On the flip side, Nottingham Forest and their manager Steve Cooper are facing huge uh, concern right now. And in fact, there's a lot of rumor that Steve Cooper, Forest's manager, is facing the sack at the moment if Nottingham Forest don't win their next match. That seems to be the main headline going around the rumor mill at the moment that I have seen. Now we'll talk more in our Matchday 16 preview about about the task that they face in their next game. But for now, it's understandable. Forest are not doing so great. They came up last season in the Premier League, and for their first season back in the top division of England, they saved themselves right near the end. They helped themselves and they did okay. And this season, it just feels like the players are not fighting anymore. And if they don't start doing something drastic to change their fortunes, they will be dragged into that race of teams that could drop down to the next division by the end of the season. Everton, on the other hand, have no such worries at the moment. They've continued to pick up results on the pitch, put in good performances, led by Dwight McNeil, who scored last week to win them their match and now has also scored again. He scored Everton's first goal today and set them on their way to beating Newcastle in a famous victory that has managed to get them past their points deduction for now, at least, and has got them out of that bottom three and just focusing on moving on up in the Premier League table. Another player who has sort of found a rebirth of sorts and has rejuvenated his career a little bit is Scotland-born Scott McTominay for Manchester United. He scored both goals for them in their victory over Chelsea, and it's not the first time. He also scored goals against Brentford a few match days ago in the league, and he has been popping up with some crucial goals for them when they really need it and when they're in need of a lifeline, really. Now, whether this is something that's sustainable long term, whether he's a regular goal scoring outlet remains to be seen. I think there are still concerns in other facets of United's team, but he is definitely a bright spark for them at the moment. A manager who deserves so much credit right now is Iraola of AFC Bournemouth after a tough start in uh, in the league season where he joined them at the very beginning. Uh, he was not getting results, just defeats mostly, and then the odd draw here and there. And yet, from their last six games, where 18 points in total were available, Bournemouth have now picked up 13 out of those 18 available points, which is sensational. What a turnaround from them. And the manager deserves so much credit. The players deserve credit for continuing to try to implement his philosophies. And the higher ups at Bournemouth deserve credit for sticking with the manager where it could have been very easy to call time on his time in charge of the club very early. We've seen managers get sacked way earlier in the season for poor runs of results, but Bournemouth stuck by him and they're reaping the benefits now. And West Ham is another side that deserves looking at because they just keep making the headlines. Jared Bowen has made headlines for his performances in away games so far this season, and of course, West Ham's big signing, James Ward-Prowse, who they got from Southampton. He is known for being deadly with assisting. He's especially good at assisting with anything that requires crosses, like free kicks, like corner kicks, and just maybe in play crosses as well. And both these players were instrumental in their game against Tottenham earlier today, actually. Jared Bowen scored. Well, it was slightly fortuitous how the ball landed to him and how much space he had, but he still had to put the chance away, and he did, making him the first player to score for their first 7 away games of a league season. It means, I mean, he's doing an incredible job. It means that whether they're home or away, it doesn't really matter. Bowen is going to deliver for West Ham. In fact, whatever their next away game is, once we tell you, feel free to make a cheeky little bet on Bowen probably getting a goal again because he seems to do it every away game. And James Ward-Prowse, who normally pops up with the assists, actually came up with the winning goal and was gifted the winning goal by Tottenham when their defense got in a bit of a mess. Didn't pass it back strongly enough to their keeper, and after a little mix-up, Ward-Prowse pounced and was the one that put away the eventual winning goal in today's game. So huge credit to both of these players for West Ham because they're continuing to pick up results against big sides and smaller ones. On to the highlight fixture of this match day. And the best way is to give you a timeline like we did for probably the best game of the season so far. Before this was uh, Chelsea against Man City some weeks ago. I wouldn't say this is quite up there, but we may as well recap it for you the same way for those of you that maybe didn't get a chance to watch it or just want to relive it for whatever reason. It started off after the opening 20 minutes where Luton did manage to maintain a good defensive shape, but eventually Arsenal reacted quickly to an attacking opportunity that presented itself, and Gabriel Martinelli managed to put away the chance, assisted by Bukayo Saka, to put Arsenal ahead. Normally, when Arsenal go ahead against sides of, with all due respect, Luton stature, it's mostly assumed that it's game over, but not Luton and not at their home. It only took 5 minutes, and Arsenal didn't defend a corner very well, and Gabriel Osho saw the opportunity, was unmarked in the box, and headed it past David Raya in goal. However, Arsenal continued to probe, they continued to push, and eventually, just before half time, after some good play from Bukayo Saka, a nice cross from Ben White, the outside right defender, and good centre forward kind of play from Kai Havertz, Gabriel Jesus was left unmarked, and he scored to make sure Arsenal took a lead into half time. Now, again, normally at this stage, it would mean that Arsenal probably continued to up the tempo and just kill the game off in the second half. But it was actually Luton that started the second half better. And another corner, this time with the very suspect goalkeeping from David Raya, where he was beaten far too easily to the cross. And Elijah Adebayo was on hand to head in for Luton, leveling the game just 4 minutes into the start of the second half. Another shock to the entire league and to Arsenal, who didn't quite seem to know what hit them, and they were reeling so much that they fell behind. With Ross Barkley, a player who used to play for Everton, for Chelsea, he just 8 minutes after they had leveled the game, he got the ball, managed to shimmy a little bit, get past Ben White, and shoot low right beside Raya, who I think should have done a little better with the save. with the save attempt at least, because he wasn't able to keep it out, and it was too close to him to justify that he should be beaten from there. But regardless, Luton were playing well, and they did kind of deserve it. Honestly, Arsenal weren't playing at the level they usually do. But stunned into action, took only 3 minutes, and Arsenal woke up. A long ball was hit into the box. Gabriel Jesus fought against a Luton defender and passed the ball in to Kai Havertz, who went sauntering into the box and poked it past the keeper. Havertz is now in good form at the moment. He's scored 3 goals for Arsenal in his last 4 games, and he looks like he's really starting to develop a good connection with his new teammates. Arsenal continued to pile the pressure, but with no success, coming close once or twice, looking like they may be about to nick the game here and there. And then they did what they've done a couple times this season. 97th minute, in the very last seconds of the game, Arsenal's captain and star creative midfielder Martin Odegaard uh, got the ball, played it out wide to Zinchenko, the left back, who played it right back into him, and Odegaard saw multiple Arsenal players in the box, looped the ball in, and Declan Rice fought hardest to get to the ball first, headed it in the last minute, as he's already done once this season, uh, to win a game when Arsenal desperately needed it. Rice is proving to be an incredible signing in every aspect of the pitch. He's already really good at his defensive responsibilities, but he's also popping up with super important goals for the club, and it cannot be understated just how vital he is right now. It just brings to mind as well an interesting stat that Arsenal have become the first side in a calendar year to win as many as 5 games after the 90th minute, meaning in those extra minutes of stoppage time tacked on at the end. 3 of them came last season when Arsenal managed to score a last minute winner through Eddie Nketiah against Manchester United. And then Jorginho and Gabriel Martinelli scored in stoppage time when Aston Villa and Arsenal were locked at 2-2, and it ended up being a 4-2 win for Arsenal. And then the famous win from last season when Reiss Nelson scored in the 97th minute to complete a full comeback from Arsenal, who had fallen 2-0 down to Bournemouth. And then, of course, this season when Declan Rice and Gabriel Jesus scored in stoppage time to help Arsenal beat Manchester United again. And of course, Declan Rice scoring again to win it for Arsenal against Luton in this thriller. It does show that Arsenal kind of never stop with this belief and never ever shut down their willingness to keep fighting until that final whistle blows, because they simply just don't stop believing. So, how did we do with our predictions for this match day? Well, I thought Wolves would have a little bit more of an easier time than they ended up having against Burnley. I mean, in truth, it was a fairly comfortable game for them. They weren't in any super real danger, but the scoreline obviously not quite as emphatic as I thought it would be. Now, I did say in my preview that I envisaged Arsenal having a tougher time against Luton than I saw a lot of fans saying. I saw many fellow Arsenal fans trying to predict how big a win Arsenal would have at Luton, which I thought was ridiculous. Luton have been tough to beat. They managed to draw Liverpool at their home. There's no chance they were losing by more than a goal. Did I think it was going to deliver a Premier League all-time classic? No, I didn't. But I did say that Arsenal would only win by a goal, which is exactly what they did. Brighton and Brentford I got spot on, which I was quite happy about, and it seemed reasonable to assume that both sides would score because they both have some defensive lapses, and they both do have the attackers that can hurt other teams. Palace and Bournemouth I expected to be a closer game, but in truth, Bournemouth didn't really have to fight too hard to get this win. Um, yeah, I wasn't even close for that one. And I also wasn't close for Fulham and Forest. Honestly, I thought Nottingham Forest have the players and would have had the willpower to fight a little harder than they did. And Fulham deserve full credit for smelling blood and just going for it. I thought Liverpool would have an easier time against Sheffield United than they did. Liverpool's attack is just generally very potent. I think it's the most electric and probably the best in the Premier League right now. But Sheffield United did manage to keep them out for bits and pieces of it, and Liverpool didn't quite click in attack the way I thought. Villa and Man City, I don't know whether I should have just had faith in Aston Villa's amazing home record, um, but I thought probably Man City after three draws would have been stunned into some sort of action. But at the moment they aren't. They're just slipping a little bit. And it's weird to see because they don't normally slump for this many games in a row. Um, but full credit to Villa. I mean, the way they played that game and the stats from the game, if you care to look them up, they show that this was no fluke. They deserved their win completely and utterly. I thought Chelsea would show up with a little bit more oomph, if that's the right word, than they did. They just didn't show any intensity in this game, and they basically rolled over. They were lucky that the scoreline is as close as it was because United should have been running away with it. I did predict 2-1 to Chelsea. It just went 2-1 the other way around. So I'm going to count it as a win that I got the number of goals right in that game. Everton also is a side that surprised me. I thought Newcastle, they've done so well against teams at the bottom end of the table that I thought they'll kind of just continue that. And they're coming off the back of good morale boosting wins and results. But fair play, Everton came out of the blocks firing, and Newcastle didn't all game. And although Everton didn't actually take the lead until just over 10 minutes left in the game, from there they simply just kept going at it because they wanted to make sure their fans got a good spectacle and that they really were sending a message to the league that, you know what, try to get rid of us. We're just going to fight harder. And Spurs and West Ham again, I thought the scoreline would be 2-1 to Tottenham, but in typical of the last few weeks kind of fashion, Tottenham took the lead and gave it away. So I don't know, maybe I'll put a bet on them doing the same thing this weekend because it's a new trend, and I know we're not quite into the 12 days of Christmas yet, but they truly are uh, giving a nice set of gifts right now to any opponent that they're facing. That's where we're going to leave you for here. Sorry, it's a bit of a long video, but with such an eventful match day that all took place during the week, we thought that it's best to bring you some details of what happened because we know it's tough to follow the matches during the work week. Um, but hopefully you liked it. Please drop a like on the video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel and pass it around to anyone you know that might be interested or just looking to get into football and learning about the Premier League. Hopefully we're informing you of some useful stuff, entertaining you. But we'll be back super soon with our Matchday 16 preview. And in the meantime, take care and remember, it's called football.